Alright, so a lot of the stuff that I build is based upon four basic shapes. So I'll go into the four basic shapes. So we need the obvious cube, duh, that's already made for us. The sphere, and it's going to be a cylinder, and this one's going to be a cone. Okay, so as long as you know this shape, so we'll set some ground rules right now. Ground rule number one, I can't use any of the other basic shapes. I can only use a cube to get the other basic shapes, and that'll start helping your mind wrap around how to make the other ones. So the first shape is obviously taken care of, but what I want to do is go over the difference between the two, because there's two forms of cubes, the hard edge cube and a soft edge cube. So if it was a hard edge cube, you know, I could basically use that shape. But let's say I needed a cube with some softer edges. I would have to go in here and insert edge loops around all the exterior borders. So that when I needed to do other complex shapes coming off of it, the outer rim maintains a hard edge, and I can see that by hitting 3. And if I went over to this one and hit 3 on the keyboard, it would turn into a ball, where this one maintains its shape. Okay. So we'd have to go into the difference between uniformed and non-uniformed divided geometry. In uniform divided geometry, is this. So if you go into your channel box, this is uniformed, this is non-uniformed geometry. Okay. This was very good for sculpting on. This one not so good for sculpting on. This one good for organic shapes later on, non-organic shapes. Okay. Alright, next. Okay, the sphere. Well, a sphere is very easy to create in Maya. Out of a box, all you do is have to go mesh smooth. But what's really interesting about the smooth is under the options, I have the ability to say hard edges or soft edges. And here's the difference between those two. So if I duplicate this using Command D, I can go in here and just smooth it out and it becomes a ball. And this one, if I go back into those options and choose hard edges, it becomes uniform geometry. So there's a way to, let's say I went in here to the channel box and divided this shape up. Well, I can also choose not to do that. I can go into mesh smooth and choose the hard edges command and smooth it out. And then if I wanted to keep continuing to do that, I can hit G on the keyboard. G is in good, and it'll divide it up just the same way as it would with the other example when making uniform geometry. So this, when it becomes smoother, if I hit G on the keyboard again, it'll smooth it out and it becomes a very smooth sphere. Now the problem with this sphere is, and you're going to see it on my screen especially because my screen's a wider format screen, it looks egg-like. Okay? So you might not see it too much in the video because the video's got a different aspect ratio, but on a widescreen format Mac, it'll look egg-like. And it's not very good for animation terms because of that egg-like property that it has. So, but it's great for modeling. Alright, the next shape is a little bit tricky, so using a different, we're going to have to go to vertices and squish the vertices up at the top. Okay, and then at the bottom, if you take this face and extrude it and go to the scale and scale it in uniformly, and then insert an edge loop here and here, you'll now have this, a cone. Okay, and it's a very good geometry cone with no polar caps or extraordinary geometry anywhere. Alright, in the last example here, what I want to do is show you how to get something like, a cylinder. Okay? And a cylinder is a little bit trickier, maybe not, but I use this probably primarily the most besides a sphere. So if I extrude and scale in, and extrude and scale in, and if I hit 3 on the keyboard, I get a cylinder. Now, depending on how hard edge you want that cylinder, that's when you go into the Edit Mesh, insert edge loop, and insert an edge loop at the top and bottom. Okay, and then you get a harder edge look when you smooth it out. But don't forget, now I have made it non-uniform geometry. So it's not very good for sculpting, but very good for non-organic geometry or non-organic forms like armor and robots and stuff. Alright, so those are your basic shapes. I just want to kind of go into how to make each and every one of them based upon the first, a cube. Alright, let's go on to the next video.